Hello, Michael Tracy here. So, the reverberations from yesterday's release by WikiLeaks of CIA documents and what appears to be the biggest release of such documents ever. The reverberations continue today, obviously. One development that I wanted to bring your attention to comes from a report in Reuters. Apparently, Reuters was able to confirm with intelligence and law enforcement officials that the documents are authentic and that the security breach, which led to the acquisition of these documents by WikiLeaks, apparently took place in late 2016, which means that the breach would have occurred under the Obama administration. So just for the purposes of chronology, I think that's useful information to be aware of. And also very notable is that U.S. allies abroad are being asked about this series of revelations because they could have implications for foreign citizens, obviously. Countries like Germany just emerged recently from a series of controversies that stemmed from the Snowden revelations in 2013. Remember, we learned from those revelations that the United States had spied on the personal phone of Angela Merkel. Obviously that caused huge outrage there and diplomatic snafu. And now, just after those tensions seem to have been tamped down, we have the possibility that German citizens could have been spied on by the CIA. So the NSA was responsible for the bugging of Merkel's phone, but now there's potential that the devices of various German nationals could have been bugged by another spy agency, the CIA. So that's going to cause diplomatic angst, I think, not just in Germany, but elsewhere. Additionally, there are people who are trying to make hay out of this as as part of some kind of grander vision that as relates to Trump. So a tweet from David Frum, who's become one of the Democrats' favorite pundits of late, despite having been a neoconservative luminary under the George W. Bush administration, agitated for every war under the sun, and not been an ally of so-called progressives until the past year or so. David Frum tweets out, quote, "The Trump administration has treated WikiLeaks as an ally and the CIA as an adversary." So David Frum is upset that Trump hasn't come out and issued a forceful statement condemning this leak. Sean Spicer, the White House spokesperson, did do that today. Maybe not as, fulsomely as Frum would have liked, but the idea that this is some kind of, the insinuation there is that Trump is somehow colluding either tacitly or explicitly with WikiLeaks to harm his opponents within the government, the federal government, otherwise known as the deep state. So you see that theory being propagated far and wide as to the timing of this release and so forth. Also, on the breaking news front, the FBI is apparently probing the release of these documents. So you would think that if Trump really was somehow orchestrating these releases, or that he desired them, that there wouldn't be an ensuing criminal investigation into finding the leakers. Maybe in some sense that would be sensible, but as yet it seems pretty incongruous to believe that the federal government would be, and the FBI, who everybody now assumes is pro-Trump for some reason, they would be pursuing criminally the leakers here. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So And another thing is the idea that Trump would have desired this leak presupposes that Trump looks favorably on various powers that he wields being exposed, and therefore becoming less freely available to him. Because I mean, of all the qualities that Trump possesses, the desire to relinquish various powers is probably not one that you would associate with him. So I think it's unlikely that this is some kind of Trump-directed effort. Also, there has been a renewed interest around the concept of the deep state, because this looks to some as if WikiLeaks, in collusion with Trump, is exacting retribution on elements of the deep state which have been hostile to Trump and have leaked various information on him and have basically upended his presidency to a large degree in the early days. So I wanted to quote from an interview that General Michael Hayden, the former CIA director, gave to Yahoo a few days ago. And again, all these things that I'm citing here are in the description box, so look at that at your convenience. Michael Hayden is asked if there is such a thing as the deep state by the incredulous reporter, and he says, I don't think we have one, not yet. Only in other countries, apparently, like Turkey or Russia, according to Hayden, does a deep state exist. Hayden instead believes that the U.S. has a permanent government. That's the term he uses, as if there's any important distinction there. And to illustrate this idea of a permanent government, Hayden references the presidential transition periods. He said when George W. Bush became president in 2001, he changed nobody at the CIA. 8 years later, Obama swapped out only one person to the CIA, meaning in the CIA leadership, and then Trump has only swapped out two people at the CIA during as his transition has progressed. So to Hayden, that's a great thing. He welcomes that, and to him, it's indicative of career professionals being within the federal government who aren't subject to democratic checks. So they don't have to worry about the populace exerting influence over them or curtailing their powers at all. They just exist sort of within their own cocoon, and they don't have, and they're not, they don't have to be bothered by the nuisance of democracy. So to Hayden, that's a great thing. For some reason, that doesn't amount to a deep state. He wants a more benign term to refer to that. His deep state sounds sort of inherently nefarious, but call it what you want. It is a deep state or a permanent government. It's really ultimately the same thing. So that's what's going on now. And then, because the deep state seems to be in opposition to Trump, because the CIA's powers have been exposed through this latest round of leaks, and WikiLeaks is perceived to be an ally of Trump by some. You have this meme going around in liberal pundit circles, which holds that the deep state, or belief in the existence of the deep state, is somehow an inherently right-wing thing. So if you are asserting the existence of a deep state, somehow that makes you a right-winger, which is so ironic and bizarre because, a year or so ago, it would have been seen as broadly speaking, a left-wing idea that the deep state exists, although there's some overlap there. But the idea that it's intrinsically right-wing to posit the existence of a deep state and to be worried about the influence that it wields over the workings of the federal government, I mean, that's not a right-wing belief intrinsically. You have some right-wingers who are libertarians and are always suspicious of state power who would affirm that, but prior to the Trump era, that would have been conceived of as largely a concept that originated within elements of the left. So just because Steve Bannon or Trump himself or other actors within the Trump administration are now talking about this, the deep state, and using that term, which they reportedly are, and I included a link to the a Washington Post reporter's tweet, which gives credence to the idea that the Bannon and others are talking about this concept, and that doesn't negate the validity of the deep state as a concept. So that's all I want to discuss as yet. Let me know what you think of this issue thus far. And again, all the links are in the description box. So I will talk to you later.